Alright guys, so before we start this video, we're going to start with a disclaimer. Now, with the information that's provided by the Dutch authorities in the Netherlands and the so-called international team that was investigating the crash that happened in eastern Ukraine, now the countries that were involved with the investigation on the ground, it was supposedly supposed to be an international team, right? But the thing is, right, you guys are missing the blue. You guys are missing the whole. You guys are not looking at the details of what has actually happened, and the people that are giving you the information about what has actually happened. Okay, because number one, the investigative teams that were on the ground are Western, part of Europe. They're part of the Western media that's been brainwashed into formulating propaganda against against Russia and the East, not the East, but Russia and China and all these are different places that are so-called communist. They they're kind of stupid. I mean, people are really just sheep in today's society. They'll believe anything the government tells them. They'll believe anything the Dutch media tells them because they're brainwashed. They don't have brains of their own. Now, why is nobody holding the airline accountable for flying their plane over over an area that is currently under war? Like if you're flying over a airspace that is being contested and there's currently content like fighting and warfare going on in that area, why are you surprised when the airplane goes down? Now, I do kind of feel sorry for the people that died, but at the same time, it kind of makes it hard for me to feel sorry for them because of the propaganda that the Western media is telling us. Like, they're putting all the blame on the Russians. They're not being fair. They're not being, how do you say it, impartial. They're not being unbiased. They're extremely biased. They're not letting Russia take part in the proceedings in the investigation. They say that it's a so-called international-led investigation, but that's bullshit because all of the people that are part of the so-called international investigation are biased and they're friends inside of the European Union. So they have something to gain by blaming Russia. They're all part of the Western media, the so-called Western circle. They're all part of that. The US and Europe and Malaysia and Australia, all these. Malaysia really is irrelevant because they hold no power and they don't wield any power. But why is it that they're blaming Russia when it was more than likely an Eastern European, well, it was an Eastern European weapon that brought it down? They're calling it a buck or something. I don't really care about what it was, but more than likely it was Ukrainian rebels that brought the plane down by someone, not really Western people that have employed the person to take it down, but it was more than likely the Ukrainian rebels that took down that plane because they mistook it for probably a Russian plane, or they just took it down because they thought it was a military plane or of some sort. It's interesting, but it's like anyway, it doesn't really matter because the people that they're prosecuting and they want to so-called prosecute in August. I think it's what's the court date? I don't know what the court date is. Hold on, let me see what the court date is. I think it's 2020, somewhere in 2020. I don't exactly have the date in front of me, but you guys can look that up right now. Blah blah. Let me see, where are the suspects. Okay, there it is, 9th of March 2020. That's when the court date is, and that's when it's going to begin. There's international arrest warrants that's been issued, but the thing is, like, the Russian government, the Russian constitution says that no person of the Russian of Russians will be extradited to a different government. They won't. because in July 2015 it vetoed a UN Security Council resolution that sought to set up a special tribunal to prosecute those responsible. Under Article 61 of Russia's constitution, no Russian citizen can be extradited to another state. So they're not going to be extradited to the to the Netherlands to face trial. It's not going to happen. They're going to stay in Russia. Nothing's going to happen to these people. I mean, they can never leave Russia, but I never leave the Netherlands. So I don't really need to leave the like when was the last time I've left the Netherlands? Probably I went to the UK, but that's it. Like, so them leaving Russia, then I if they never leave Russia, it's okay for them because most people don't leave the country that they are born in. Like, they don't. So it doesn't really Oh my god, these people are so dumb. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, even though they're doing all this, it doesn't matter because they're not gonna stand trial. They're not gonna leave Russia unless somehow Russia gives them up for money or something. I mean, I doubt that. I doubt that. Maybe some type of economic sanctions on Russia, but they can't because Russia can trade with China, so they'll be okay. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just thinking like, oh, oh my days. Okay, so I guess people like they're butthurt because 193 Dutch nationals died, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Like, you guys need to tell me in the comment section what you guys think. But it's the thing is, look, Russia's not, in my opinion, Russia's not responsible, and they're blaming Russia because the Western media doesn't like Russia. It's propaganda, man. And if you guys can't actually see through that, then you guys are just brainwashed. I'm reading here the U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called upon Russia to ensure that any indicted individual currently in Russia face justice. But Russia's Foreign Ministry said in a statement that it rejected the findings of the JIT, which were aimed at discrediting the Russian Federation in the eyes of the international community. Unarmed, unnamed, Wait, unnamed? Why are they unnamed, the Dutch officials? Why are they not named? Why don't they have their names? Okay, whatever. Have told news agencies that Russia refused to cooperate with the investigation. I don't like. Okay, how is this going to hold any merit if we don't know who the people that are saying this are and we don't know their identities? They have the balls to release the identities of the people they consider suspects, but they don't want to tell us who the fuck the officials are. Okay, sure. That's kind of okay. That's kind of weird and dumb, but whatever. That Russia refused to cooperate with the investigation. That's probably a lie because Russia actually said that they wanted to be part of the proceedings and they were blocked. They were blocked by by the international so-called investigative team. But the foreign ministry does not deny this, saying Russia had always been interested in establishing the truth. And I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Like, you know how a wise man once told me, like, it's one side of the story and then it's the other side of the story and then the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I'm not gonna believe anything these guys tell me. Like, I don't believe the media. I don't believe what they tell me. I think that some of the what they're saying is true, but most of it's just bullshit. But let's play this video for you guys real quick.
In the early afternoon of July the 17th, 2014, a Boeing 777-200 of Malaysia Airlines departs Amsterdam Airport Schiphol for Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Flight MH17 enters Ukrainian airspace at an altitude of 33,000 feet, following airway Lima 980. The crew diverts a short distance to the north to avoid some thunderstorms when returning to the airway in the eastern part of Ukrainian airspace. In this region, an armed conflict between the Ukrainian government and armed groups is in progress. Therefore, lower levels of the airspace are restricted for civil air traffic. Flight MH17 is routed above this restricted airspace to waypoint Romeo November Delta in the Russian Federation. Until that moment, the flight proceeds normally. When flight MH17 is above the eastern part of Ukraine, a Buk surface-to-air missile system fires a missile. It travels almost at 3 times the speed of sound and carries a 9N314M model warhead. Inside it is an explosive core surrounded by 2 mantles containing preformed iron fragments. Radar guides it to its target, where it is detonated by means of a proximity fuse. A Buck surface-to-air missile can reach an altitude of 80,000 feet, exceeding the flight altitude of flight MH17 by far. At 20 minutes and 3 seconds past 1, this warhead explodes to the left and above the cockpit of MH17. About 800 pre-formed fragments perforate the aeroplane. This impact, combined with the blast of the explosion, causes the cockpit and the business class section to separate. As it descends, the aeroplane disintegrates. None of the 298 occupants survived the crash. The investigation demonstrated that the aeroplane flew at an altitude of 33,000 feet.
Okay, let me stop you there for a second. The investigation was not impartial, it was biased. So I don't find the findings that they give me conclusive because it's not impartial. It's not conducted by it's not actually conducted by a real international investigative team. It's investigated by a so-called investigative team, international investigative team. But let's continue with the video.
To say 10.1 kilometers. No abnormalities regarding the aeroplane or crew were found. The flight proceeded normally, and no malfunctions of any system or oral warnings were recorded. Also, no distress messages were received by air traffic control. Both flight recorders stopped abruptly at 13:20:03, and from that time, the flight crew of MH17 did not respond to air traffic control messages. Flight MH17 disappeared from the radar. The aeroplane was perforated by hundreds of high-energy objects shaped like cubes and bow ties. Many fragments were found in the bodies of the crew seated in the cockpit. Some of them had a bow tie or cubic shape. The left side of the cockpit area shows a characteristic damage pattern. Traces of explosives were found in the wreckage and on the missile fragments found. Paint on fragments found inside the wreckage matches paint on the recovered missile parts. The point of detonation was determined by the spray pattern on the cockpit and by simulations, and was confirmed by the recorded sound peak. The impact and blast resulted in the aeroplane's disintegration. The wreckage of the aeroplane was distributed over 6 different sites, consistent with the way the aeroplane broke up in the air. Based on these findings, the Dutch Safety Board concludes that flight MH17 was downed by a 9N314M warhead carried on a 9M38 series missile as installed on a Buck surface-to-air missile system. Other scenarios were investigated and excluded. No other scenario can explain this combination of factors.
The findings are conclusive and support each other based on multiple.
No, they're not. They're not conclusive because, number one, you know what? You guys don't care about what I think, right? So I'm just going to continue playing the video, but the findings are not conclusive because they don't actually have any evidence to convict these people, but whatever.
Sources. To that end, we have been able to draw well-supported conclusions about the flight and the causes of the crash. Calculations have demonstrated that the missile's trajectory commenced somewhere in the 320 square kilometer
So you just said somewhere in that region. Shut up, man. You guys don't know what the fuck you're saying.
area in the eastern part of Ukraine. The Russian Federation concurs with the conclusion that the crash was caused by the detonation of a warhead, but has reservations regarding the missile and warhead type. However, in our judgment, the arguments in the report overwhelmingly support the conclusions as presented.
Sure, we believe you. We don't believe you. You need more people, motherfucker. We don't believe you. You don't know what you're talking about, man. Just go back to go back to Holland and just eat your pancakes, ride your bike down that little canal, the little canal that you do, and just shut up. I'm out. Peace. Anyway, you guys, man, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you guys think about the video, and tell me what you guys think about the MH17 flight. I'm out. Peace.